I want to ask you a question, and
Mhm.
I'm fascinated by the answer to this. If somebody were to ask you at a coffee shop, bar, conference, whatever, who you are, aside from the parenting, aside from the friends, aside from what you do, how would you answer that question?
Oh my goodness. Um, so it's a great question. And I will say the parenting is a huge part of my identity because I do have 5 kids. So that's been like a big part of my life for a long time. But I'm someone who is honestly, obsessed with helping people. And often that translates to helping them understand what's possible for them in the world, understand that there are so many ways to make money, understand that having your own business is not risky, is that it's awesome, that it's amazing. And I'm a chronic oversharer who, loves talking to people about this stuff. So that's who I am.
I love it. All right, so get ready to overshare then. That's what I'm talking
Love
about.
it.
There we go. First of all, I gotta say, I love your books, not only because they're color coded or color organized, but because you got Stephen King right underneath Cialdini, which is a nice little combination there. So
I
that's
have to credit
perfect.
my daughter. Last year, I was away for 6 weeks with one of my kids who had surgery out of the country. And while I was away, my daughter came in and rearranged my bookcases. And I will say it is a very attractive background. It is really hard to find stuff when it's organized by color and not by
I bet,
alphabetical
eh?
order.
Positives and negatives to everything. It is what
That's
it
right.
is.
That's right. But yes, I do read everything. And I think that there is a lot of wisdom in both the fiction and the nonfiction stuff.
I
So, yes,
agree. Damn right. Yeah, for sure. I love fiction because it stems directly from, well, Stephen King talks about how he sources his stories as though it's a discovery of an artifact
hmm
he's found,
hmm
not something that he's creating, but something more or less he's dusting off, like a fossil,
Right.
which is an incredible
Love
way
it.
of looking at it. So we can adapt
Absolutely.
that to our marketing, to our copywriting, all kinds of, to our life.
Definitely.
Yeah, experiences that come up. So it's fascinating. Anyways, so you love helping people. What do
I
you
do.
like helping people do or experience the most?
So I'm specifically super into email marketing, but most of what I got into email marketing because most of what I saw made me want to jab forks in my eyes. I hated the way it was being done. And that was before I even saw how it was being taught. But when I saw like what was happening out there, when I learned copywriting, and I say learned copywriting, like let's use that term loosely. When I decided that I was a freelance writer, I'm very old. So I went to the library and like used the card catalog to look up books in the library on copywriting. And I checked out every book on writing and on marketing writing and on copywriting. And I read through all the greats. And a lot of it, I learned an enormous amount, certainly. And then the early days of the internet, there were a lot of these like dear friend sales letters, these really direct response informed sales letters on web pages. And I hated them because I was like, this feels so impersonal and so salesy and so blah, and I don't like it. And as the years went by, I saw people doing that in email. I saw like that whole perfect webinar style of selling and marketing that just did not feel good to me. It didn't feel good because people were pretending that recorded webinars were live. People were lying in email and saying things like, this is your only opportunity, or this discount expires, or, oh, I sent the wrong link by accident. And all of that was very clearly untrue. And I hated it. Like really hated it. It just brought up real emotional reactions in me and not what they were going for. And when I started my own course on how to be a freelance writer, I wrote my own sales page and I wrote my own emails and I wrote them from my heart. And I wrote like what I really thought and what I was really wanting to say to people. And I wrote them very specifically and it resonated. And I saw at the time, so this is like 2016, I saw a lot of other people who were creating courses at that time who were struggling with email And I looked at what they were modeling their emails on, and I saw like this is people were teaching them crap and just giving them terrible advice. And I hated it. So I started very unofficially at first teaching email to other people because I don't want to read bad email. Like it's offensive. So like I want to get good email in my inbox. I'm somebody who reads all the time, right? As you can see, I like if I'm sitting down, I know it's a bad habit, but like if I'm sitting down to eat, I'm still going to read something. If there's nothing in front of me to read, I'm going to read the cereal box. So like if I've got email on my phone, I'm going to read it and I want it to be good. I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be enjoyable and I want it to be truthful. And so when I started teaching email, I started teaching people how to be honest, like never lie in email. And it's more than write like you talk. It's really let people know who you are through your email, through your writing. So I'm really into that.
Interesting. You can tell you're passionate about it, eh? You got
I
the
really
fire
am.
inside you, which I love. It's awesome. So those are the things that you would say not to do. Let's go into what you would say
Yeah.
to do instead. How do we replace, the classic, the cliche, what everybody else is
Yeah.
doing, the crap is that you would call it, to moving
Yeah.
it towards the right
The good
emotions you
stuff.
want to get, right? So how do you do it?
Yeah, so it really comes down to, people spend a lot of time building out like customer avatars. And I'm like, throw that away and tell me about an actual person who you've helped, like in
I
whatever
love it. I
whatever it is
love
that you
it.
do, right? Like
Yeah.
literally throw that away. So here's a really good example. I was just talking to a student of mine, and she was to a client of mine, and she was saying like, she's a fitness coach and she helps people lose weight. And I was like, all right, so why, like, tell me about a specific customer of yours who you helped to lose weight. So she says, okay, let's talk about Katya. Okay, Katya, why did Katya come to you? Why did she want to lose weight? Or why did she why did she want to work with you? She wanted to lose weight. Okay, why did she want to lose weight? I don't know. She like doesn't have enough energy. Okay, what does that mean? She like, why does it matter to have more to not have
Mm,
enough energy? She said, well, like she felt like she was letting herself and her kids down. All right, we're getting somewhere now. What does that mean though? Like, give me a specific example of how Katya felt she was letting herself and her kids down. And she said, okay, her kids wanted to go to the zoo. And Katya was like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with them at the zoo. So she kept putting them off for weeks and weeks and weeks. And finally, they were like, whatever. She gave in. She took them to the zoo. They're at the zoo. Her toddler runs away and she can't run because she's overweight, right? So she lost her toddler for a couple of minutes.
mm,
And that's really scary. And that, like, the whole experience really shook her up. She found her toddler after a few minutes. Everything was fine. But she came home and she was like, what if I'm so unhealthy that I die and my kids grow up without a mom? That's a lot more powerful than I
mm,
want to lose weight. Like
mm,
now we're at this, so getting to that, like, so it all comes from how do you get to that? You talk to people, you talk to the people you help, you listen to them, you ask them, like, why does it matter? Why is this helpful to you? Right? Like, why do you care about this thing? You listen to what they say. We make this so much harder than it has to be. Like, if you literally just ask people, they will tell you exactly what you should be writing to them in email. They will tell you exactly what they need to hear from you.
mm,
And if you will just listen to them and give them that, they will be so happy. They will be like, they will feel so heard and so seen, and they will know that you understand them and that you do care about them. So I think that being a successful business owner and writing great email comes down to really, one, genuinely caring about the people you serve and being willing to listen to them.
mm. It's like a
So
relationship at the end of the day, same as any
it is,
relationship.
yeah, it is 100%. I truly believe that business is all about long-term relationships. Even if you're selling one to many, you should still be creating those long-term fans over the years. I literally have right now, I haven't even read it yet. It's still like in my little notifications on my phone, but I saw the very beginning of a Facebook message and it starts off, hey, Abby, I've been following you for several years now, and I love what you bring to your students. And I haven't gone in to read the whole message yet, but like these are the kinds of people you want on your list. You want them to have been paying attention, to be picking up everything you're putting down, and to know that you get them.
To know that you get them, right? More than
Mhm.
most other people that don't care enough to
Right,
understand them before they write the copy to them. And
right.
that's your major differentiator. I love it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So let's say that let's walk through the process and how we actually go about understanding, being able to listen and
Hmm.
really step into their reality.
Hmm.
Like Robert Collier said, to understand the conversation that's going on in their head so that you can step
Hmm.
into it rather than creating a reality. You just
Right.
leverage the reality that's already existing, they're already playing out.
Yeah.
So let's walk through the process. Let's say that you've got a client, and you're talking to
Mhm.
that individual, and you want to get some insight in terms of how you can leverage what is on their mind, what was on their
Mhm.
mind, to get
Mhm.
more clients. What should we be asking them?
Right. So, for example, what had you like, how long have you known that you had this problem that you wanted to solve, right?
Mm,
What had you tried before? And what happened then? Like, what had you tried?
mm.
How did that work or not work? How did you feel?
Yeah, that's the next question. Yeah, how'd that make you
Right.
feel? Yeah. Mm,
How'd that make you feel? What did you do then? And it's really like very, I mean, it sounds so basic when I say it, but it's so step by step. It's really letting people remember what it felt like
mm,
and going back to those emotions and saying, well, I or like if I hadn't tried anything yet, what kept you from trying? Like what about the pain was not enough to make you try something, or did you just feel like it was
mm,
hopeless? And why was now the moment you took action? Like why is now the right time for you to do this? So then you can get a sense of where in their journey people need to be in order to make your solution the right one for them. um what is your biggest fear coming into this? Like you've put down the money and you're ready to do it,
mm,
but what's still what fears do you still have inside of you? How would you define, like how will we identify success? How will you know that we've nailed it?
yeah.
If it's 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months from now, whatever, how do we define success? And really, how do I identify that? What are the signifiers for people along the way? One of the things that I like to ask people is like talking about success signifiers. Like, what are some of the small goalposts along the way to reaching the big goal that are going to let you know that you're on the right path? So, for example, when I teach women how to start freelance writing businesses, right? So, like, ultimately, they want to have clients and make X amount of money and whatever. But what are some of the things that are going to make you feel like you're on the right track along the way? So, for a lot of them, it's like being able to say, when people say, oh, what do you do? To say, I'm a writer, and to not like feel ashamed, or to like
Mm,
to just to own that and be excited by it. Like that's a success signifier that may not be tied to money, but it's showing that emotional shift for them. And being able to tap into that is really good. So yeah, it's
mm,
asking them a lot of these really basic questions. Why now? What like I also to set people up for success, what's different about this? Like what are you going to do differently? What's different about you right now? If you've tried things before, why do we think now is going to be better? And that can tell you a lot about how they perceive you and your solution specifically, as opposed to any other solution out there.
mm.
And and if you get a lot of people saying, "Well, I don't know," so then maybe you need to work on your how you come across, and do you come across as trustworthy and somebody who they can really depend on to help them reach that success point that they're looking for.
Right. So you're creating a safe space for them. And if they say, I
Yes.
don't know, what I would love to say is, well, if you did know, what would the answer be? And then
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes just a little twist like that will, oh, wait a second,
Definitely.
all of a sudden it comes flooding out. I do know, apparently, which is such a, it's interesting.
It's a trick that I use with my children, and a lot of the time they're like, "Where is the whatever?" And I'm like, and I'll say to them, "Do you know where it is?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, if you did know, where would it be?" And they're like,
Huh.
"Oh, maybe I do know."
Yeah,
So,
exactly. What correlations do you find working this process with clients with having kids? Do you have
oh my gosh.
direct correlation there?
Yes, so much. So for me personally, so much. For me personally, I have a son. So I have 5 kids. One of my sons is has special needs. He's intellectually disabled, and there are a lot of things that I see that are so much like building a business. So, for example, when he was 13 or 14 years old, in the span of a few weeks, he learned to do several things. So he learned to tie his shoes by himself, and he learned to send written texts on his phone. And my children are all bilingual, so he was doing them in both languages. And it was like all like in this short span of time, he was suddenly doing these two major skills. And I was talking about it, and somebody said to me, wow, what changed that all of a sudden he knew how to do these things? And I literally laughed out loud. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. This was not all of a sudden. This was like the result of 13 or 14 years of intensive occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, whatever. This is the, like, not even the culmination of all of that work, but this was the result of many years of work. And it clicked, yeah, all of a sudden, but because of the repetitive process. So it often we see in business, people are like, oh, what'd you do that all of a sudden you're successful? No, I was not all of a sudden successful. I put in hard work for many, many years, and you see the tail end of that. So
Mm,
you think, oh, all of a sudden you're successful. No, that is not how this works. It is compounding. It is showing up every day, even when it's exhausting, even when it feels like you've tried everything already and nothing works. And it's showing up when things are just ordinary. Like it's not necessarily, not working, but like it hasn't taken off yet. And one day it clicks and it does take off.
mm. Lots of
So
interesting correlations there, that's for sure.
indeed,
Yeah. It's
indeed.
and we all kind of go through that process ourselves, don't we? Where we have to realize that yeah, it's not going to be as fast as we thought it was going to be. It's a part of it. You
Right.
know, the old
Definitely.
saying, speaking of cliches that we want to avoid in emails, we want to this is the old saying, which is we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And that
Yes.
speaks to that exactly. Um,
Yes.
what about the actual because what you're doing really when you're having these conversations with clients is to get this information out of them. You're
Mhm.
extracting their reality, their belief system, their identity, their problems, their pains, their
Mhm.
opportunities, their goals. And how many of them do you speak with typically if you were to run a new campaign for a stranger with their
Mhm.
business? How many of their clients would you want to speak with before you had a solidified grasp in terms of who the individual you're writing to is?
Right. So I'd want to have conversations with at least 5 to 7 customers and ideally at least 5 non-customers, like people who have been through a masterclass, a webinar, an email sequence, and have chosen not to buy. I also rely heavily on written data. So I'll go through surveys and that kind of thing, but nothing replaces those actual conversations. So I do like to have at least 5 to 7 customer conversations and some non-customer conversations as well, on top of reviewing reams of data and just digging in on that.
What about using AI? Because you could record, especially for the data
Yeah.
analysis with the surveys or whatever, but you can also record the conversations, upload the
Yes.
transcription to an AI, and get back all of them, upload all of them, get back all of the
Right. So
patterns and things that aren't necessarily on the surface that are
I
easily identifiable.
100% do rely on AI to help with data analysis. And if the client has had their own, customer conversations, yes, often I will. I prefer to actually watch the conversation, the video, and listen to it rather than just read a transcript because I think there's more that gets conveyed through nuance and pauses and hesitations that may not come across in a
Mm,
transcript.
mm,
But I do use AI to help us. Do a lot of data analytics in the sense of like, so let's say I have a client who has done extensive surveys over the years. So let's say we have like, I don't know, let's say we have 7,000 rows of data, answering certain questions like why didn't you enroll and whatever. So if you feed that into your AI LLM of choice and you say to it, hey, I'm going to give you the results of a survey. Here's the question. I want you to take these answers and group them into, let's say, 5 buckets of why people didn't enroll. Summarize each bucket, topic, whatever, in 2 to 3 sentences and give me the results. And then you're going to get like very quickly, you can sift to the top, like the 5 major objections that people have. I then go further and I say, give me, 20 specific phrases that people use to talk about this.
mm.
So then we're getting that customer language without having to, as you say, like comb through pages and pages of data, which that's how we used to do it in the olden days, and it did take time. And so we can speed that process up. But yeah, even when a customer will give me, say, oh, I have like 600 customer interviews, and you could just look at the output. That's good. And I also want to at least watch a few of those conversations.
because it doesn't capture it all, eh? There's,
Yeah.
you can have, you're very spot on with the fact that the pauses, the hesitancies, all of these little micro nuances that, the transcription wouldn't catch, they could be
Right.
very meaningful and valuable if you were to take those into account. You
Yeah.
know, you can do it to a certain extent by telling the AI to be the collection, the conglomerate of all of the psychologists that have
Hmm.
ever been preeminent writers. Take all
Hmm.
of that in, you're the collection of all of those, and therefore analyze these responses, these transcripts, these survey responses based on what these psychologists collectively
Hmm.
would make out of the underlying mechanism that's producing these overt results, which is an interesting way to kind of get under the surface and
Yeah.
start to
And
understand what's
I
happening.
think that ultimately, look, it's like, why did we all have to learn our times tables in elementary school? Because they told us we'd never walk around with calculators in our pockets, and guess what we do? So like
True.
to an extent, right? So to an extent, yes, we can rely on AI to do some of this for us, but did you ever see the movie? I think it's called Click with Adam
Oh
Sandler, where
yeah,
he like
yeah,
fast forwards through his life, right?
yeah.
So there's a lot of enjoyment to be gotten from doing some of this work. Like, I mean, I do it
Mm,
because I love it, right? I enjoy having conversations with people. I enjoy watching conversations, and getting that information. I think I would enjoy my work a lot less if it was just, okay, here's the results. Now go do stuff with them. Like, I want to
mm.
be a part of the creation of that data, not just an observer of it. So that's me.
You bring up an interesting point. Look what happened at the end of that movie. He ended up skipping all
Yes.
the sex. He ended up skipping all
Yeah.
of the relationship with his father.
The
I
good
mean,
stuff.
like,
Yeah.
just because of what he perceived at the time as monotonous or wanting to skip. And next
Right.
thing you know, it was major regret, and it was
Right.
a blessing for him to be able to go back to it. I know the movie, man. I've seen it. I just played it
I
out
can
all out
tell.
I just played it all out in a click in my mind, so to speak.
There you
So
go.
yeah,
There you
that's
go.
there's something to be said about that, definitely.
Mhm.
How about the actual implementation of the copy? Once you have the conversations, actually, let's start with this. How do you get them on the phone, first of all? Like one step back
Okay.
so that they're able to give you the data to begin with. Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, so we've found that incentivizing people works really well, and it doesn't have to be a lot. So with customers, they're usually extremely excited to just have the opportunity to talk to, if it's a personal brand, to the person behind the brand, right? And so offering people just, let me give you some one-on-one time. So if you have, like, let's say a half hour or an hour call, and you say to people, like, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm also going to give you an equal amount of time to ask me any questions and see how I can help you. And with non-buyers too, we find that incentives can be really powerful. So an incentive can be something as simple as like an Amazon gift card or our old friend Cash. Um, and it can also be like, let's say if you have somebody who went through the master class and you kind of thought they were going to buy the thing and they wound up not buying. If they were on the fence and like, what could I have done to nudge them over? So those can often be, because like if somebody was like, I was never going to buy it, okay, so it's not really great for me to talk to you. Like that's not gonna, like, it's not gonna help me. But if somebody was really close and then they didn't buy it, what are the objections that are holding them back? Because they're always going to say, oh, it was too much money. Um, and if you can offer that person, okay, I'd like to give you a chance to actually get a copy of the course, project, whatever it is, like, in exchange for talking to me, a lot of them are really excited by that opportunity. And by the way, I've found that an amazing question to ask people when they say, oh, it was too much money, is we ask them, tell me about other things you have spent money on this month. And because it's really interesting to see where people's priorities are, because it's never about your price. It's literally never, never about your price. So unless you're talking to people who truly have no money in their bank account. Um, and, other than that, it's like they're choosing to spend that money on something else. So why and how
Mm.
can we address that?
And you reveal those incongruent hierarchies that they say
Mm-hmm.
that this is important to them, but they're
Yes.
actually doing that. You reveal that, and maybe it helps them take a step towards being congruent with what they
Mm-hmm.
say is valuable and important to them. It's
Mm-hmm.
interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so get them on the phone, reveal their current experience of reality, their identity, their
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, what's stopping them, what they want, and what they're afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, what it comes down to. Oversimplified, but get the nuances within that. What about the
Right.
reframing process? Once you have the objections, how do you go about reframing them so that, and then actually tactically utilizing that in your copy so that you're
Yeah.
able to deliver an effective message?
So a lot of it stems from really finding out what is the real objection. So when I'm talking to
Mm,
non-customers, what I'm going for is to find out 5 to 7 unexpected objections, things that I did not anticipate. Because if I've already anticipated them, I've already written copy addressing them, right? So, and the things that we in our like we as business owners love to tell ourselves, oh, it's too expensive, or they think it takes too much time. And those could be completely wrong, right? Like
mm,
until I know what the real objection is, I can't speak to it. So finding out what that objection is already, I would say, like 80% of the battle. Now that I know it, I can absolutely work it into my copy. I can say, okay, you're worried about XYZ. Let me show you why
mm,
you don't need to worry about that. Um, what I personally love to do with clients now is I'm super into hyper personalization in email.
mm,
So I love to, one of my clients is a parenting coach. Okay. And so they have a course that helps parents of kids from like toddler age through teens and with all kinds of parenting issues. So on the front end, when people are signing up for the webinar, we ask them 2 questions on the webinar sign up form, and we have not seen any drop in conversion of like signing up to the webinar by adding these 2 simple questions. So we ask them the age of the child who they're struggling with right now and the biggest issue. And they're both drop down menu answers, and they're based on, data we've collected over the years of like, what are the biggest struggles? Now that we know those 2 things, we can be really specific in our copy. So each individual person who goes through is going to see, this hyper personalized copy because we're taking that information, putting it in custom fields, sending it back to the email service provider, and then using a little bit of fancy coding magic to show a different output to different people. So if you said, okay, I'm dealing with a teenager and the issue is he's always on his cell phone, those are the kinds of examples we're going to give you throughout the copy. We're going to show you
mm,
exactly how other parents of teenagers who were struggling with cell phone obsession, abuse, addiction, whatever, how they found success with this program. So those are the case studies you're going to see. Those are the testimonials you're going to see. Those are the examples you're going to see when we talk about things. And you're really going to come out of this feeling like this is the answer to my issue here.
mm,
And another way to do it is to ask people up front to take like what's the how would you describe the outcome you're looking for? Like, so for in my own course, like how, I want to be a freelance writer. Why do you want to be a freelance writer? So it might be I want more time with my kids, or I want to retire my partner, or I want to leave my toxic job. So they all want the same end result, but they all want it for slightly different reasons. So if I know the reason, then again, I can hyper personalize the copy. And when I'm talking about like the outcome, I can talk about imagine how amazing it's going to feel when you don't have the Sunday night scaries because you don't have to go into work on Monday morning. Um, versus imagine how amazing it's going to feel when your daughter says, can you be the field trip mom? And you can say yes, because you can, so like just speaking very specifically to what people actually want, and understanding what are the objections that are in their way and helping them move past them. So
mm. I love the hyper personalization. That's very cool. Do you
I'm
do
obsessed with
I
it.
can tell. Do you do it with placeholders? How do you do it? Because we're using AI to rewrite the whole email for each individual. So there's no like,
Mm,
first name placeholder, then like maybe belief one placeholder that, then
mm,
objection reframe to belief one as a second, because you could do that. That's the way that we've done it in the past. It gets
mhm.
complicated because there's all kinds of
Sure.
different variables you got to attach to one another. So what
Right.
we're
So,
doing nowadays is we're just using
yeah.
AI to generate this completely specific message to each individual,
Wow.
and it creates a follow-up campaign for all of them. So imagine that. Imagine the
That's
power of
very,
of that. Yeah. So
yeah.
how do you do it right now?
Right now I use ConvertKit.
Yeah,
And so when we collect the information, we pump that back into custom fields inside of ConvertKit. And then in the email, I just use liquid code. So the liquid code says like, if the subscriber condition is this, then show this text
I
versus if
see.
it's this, then show that text. Yeah.
Brilliant. You see, but it gets
So,
complex though. It's hard to set that up.
it's, it can be, I, and I'm not a coder. I just really like it. So I like, I just have fun, man. I like the other thing about business is I think it should be fun and I think that you should enjoy every second of what you're doing. And I am really big on that. So I do things that I love and I really like geeking out on that kind of stuff. So I like it.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, you should take a look at using AI to come to
Yeah,
you would really like that, I think.
I
Because
definitely.
what we do, this is something that that's proprietary that we kind of created. Nobody had
Uh-huh,
come up with it that I had seen, but I was the
uh-huh,
same as you because I love the hyper
uh-huh.
personalization. But then
Yeah.
there was the if then statements, and then it got too complex if you wanted to do another one with it. So it's like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to get really personalized. So I was like, okay, this
Nice.
is too much. We've got AI that can write the copy for me now. So why don't we
Mm-hmm.
have a list of names, a list of emails? And what I did at first was I just had a team in Pakistan take all the
Mm-hmm.
names, find their LinkedIn profiles, find all of their
Oh,
posts,
wow.
paste it all into a spreadsheet in different columns. Then once we had their bio, their headline, all of their posts, we took that and we uploaded the entire row, so their name, email, LinkedIn, and all the information we could have on them. And we gave that to the AI. And then with a kind of comprehensive prompt, we said, okay, listen,
Mm-hmm.
make this direct outreach for that person. And then,
Oh,
so then
interesting.
in the next columns over are all of the follow-ups and initial outreach, and then 5 or 6 follow-ups afterwards for each person. And then so
Wow.
they went down the spreadsheet, and then we sent out the hyper customized email that literally seems like somebody wrote it for them. And it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
been unbelievable in terms of response.
That's
33%
great.
reply rate on cold emails, which is
Nice.
like insane.
Nice.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's to them, and it's obvious that it's to them.
Right.
So it's very cool.
Right.
It's something you can
Very
take a look
cool.
at doing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Very
I love
cool.
it. I love it. All right. So what else? We've got the research, how to get them on the phone, find out where they're at in terms of reality, what they need to hear. How do we go about actually converting that into the copywriting so that we can create an effective message that gets them to take an action that we want them to take?
Yeah, I mean, that's again, it's relying heavily on what they've said. So I do, all the calls that I do get them transcribed. I am, we've all got our favorite tools that we're using, whatever. And as much as I can, I'll pull what we call voice of customer language, right? So if I have a client who's a health coach, and when she and I were talking on our very first call, she was like, "Yeah, if people are having if they're having issues with their digestive system." And I was like, hold up, Louise. Does anyone call you and say, I'm having issues with my digestive system? And she was like, no. I said, what do they say? She said, they call me and they say, oh, Louise, I feel so bloated. I'm like, cool. That's what we're going to say. Like
Mm,
that's the language we're going
mm,
to use. So as much as possible, again, we love to make this really hard. It doesn't have to be hard. Literally copy and paste what your customers are saying. Use that in the
mm,
copy. Show them that you get it. I hate when people say like, there's that, it's a very cliche online business owner phrase like, I get it. I've been there. Don't tell me, show me that you've been there. Put me in the
mm,
story. So,
mm,
it's using storytelling, but not made up crappy junky stupid stories. Like because we can all smell them coming a mile away, right? So real stories. I have a client who's a dentist who teaches dentists how to market, and most people who go into dentistry, like there's a history there. They're going into dentistry because their parents wanted more from them, so they may have grown up not having a lot of money. They may have taken on debt to get this degree, and they've started this practice, and they're supposed to be the successful one in the family. So she
mm,
told, she was talking about how early in her career. She's the dentist, and her friends are all like, wow, you made it. You're so cool. And they're at Target for a girls' weekend. And she's like, I was 100% sure that my credit card was not going to cover what we were buying. Like, I owed so much money because I wasn't running my practice effectively and whatever. And so
Mm,
telling that story,
yeah.
making that kind of emotional connection, like that's something that other dentists feel like there's all this pressure, right?
Mm.
So don't tell me you know how I feel. Show me that you know how I feel. Show me that you've stood where I'm standing, and show me how you got to the next place, right? So it's really just, I mean, it sounds so basic and like, what, there's no big secret? No, there isn't a big secret. Listen to what they say and write that.
As simple as that.
So,
We overcomplicate it, eh?
yeah,
But that
yeah.
presupposes that you're a dentist writing to other dentists to be able to tell that story, or do you tell a story of a client, so that you know that you're understanding them, or
Yeah, so
how do
I
you
mean,
look at
yes,
that?
if you so many people do build a personal brand based on like I'm helping an earlier version of myself, right? So
Yeah.
if you've done that, then yeah, those are the stories. If that's not you, like if you're helping somebody who like you've never done this before, cool. So then use the story of your client. Yeah, so you can say like it doesn't have to be you, right? It can be, Katya was afraid to take her kids to the zoo. And when she finally did, here's what happened.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
let them, again, let them see themselves in that story. And the more, okay, you got my other reference. I don't know if you'll get this one. I'm a huge fan of Amy Tan, the author. So Chinese American woman writing about kind of the immigrant daughter experience. So it's about mothers and daughters and the relationship of these mothers who were born in China and their daughters who were born in America. And one of the things that I love about her storytelling is it's so highly specific. She'll describe a very specific Chinese meal, a very specific Chinese ritual, something. And because of the specificity, I, like anyone else who reads it, I'm able to take it and identify the things that are similar to my own experience, even though she's being very super specific about her own Chinese American immigrant experience. I'm like, oh my God, that's just like when my Jewish mother-in-law does blah, blah, blah. My Israeli mother-in-law does blah, blah, blah. And like, it's so relatable in its specificity. And
Mm,
I tell my clients that all the time. Like, the more specific you can be, the more people will be able to take it and relate it to themselves. It's counterintuitive and also true.
right.
So,
It's interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. What about
Mhm.
taking into account the target audience? What if they are more general as opposed, because like the way I see it in psychoanalysis, there's lots of camps of people. Let's say two camps of people, which is
Sure.
funny. Two camps of people, over specific, very specific in
Hmm.
terms of thinking, and
Hmm.
over generalizing.
Generalizing.
And you can hear them in their language patterns. Some will say,
Hmm.
oh, I like the car because it gets me from A to B. The other will say, I like the car because the tire pressure is 40 psi and the engine
Hmm.
runs at an idle of 800 revolutions per
Right.
minute. It's like, those are the hyper specific and general, and you can kind of differentiate your target audience, not avatar. Let's heaven forbid we say
Right.
that the big blue dudes with the big tails. We say so, right? So what about taking into account the two there with your target audience?
So it's a good question. I think that I th in my experience, we're all both of those people, and it's related to different things. So I think that when we're my instinct is to say that I'm always going to err on the side of specificity in copy. Because when I'm trying to reach them, I'm trying to reach them in the area where they do care more and where they are going to be more specific. So yeah, like I'm not going to be on the car buying enthusiast list, right? Because I like the car because it's blue and because it connects immediately to my phone when I get in it and because I can make it cool before I get in it, right? Like that's what I like about it. And my husband will certainly be on the car enthusiast list and know all of I mean, I think he pretends he knows more than he does sometimes, but
Don't we all? That's funny. Yeah,
but
okay.
like I remember getting a like a flat tire once, and we were at a gas station. This is many years ago, and my or no, we had an engine issue. We had an engine issue, and my husband and his cousin, they get out of the car and they pop the hood and they're like, "Yeah, that's an engine, all right." And they're like, "We're gonna change the tire." I'm like, "Why?" And they're like, "Because that's what we know how to do." Like, how is that going to help us? So, yeah.
That's
Anyway,
funny. Uh-huh.
so
So
it's actually a really good story. I'm going to use that in an email. So,
how are you going to staying on that? How are you going to take
yeah.
that email, that story, and tailor it in with an offer or some sort of CTA? How are you going
Absolutely.
to
I'm
tell
going
the
to use
story?
that to talk about like when we do the wrong things in our business. I'm going to talk
Oh,
about
interesting.
when when we get obsessed with A/B testing our subject lines when that's not the real issue, or when we get obsessed with like, are my branding colors right, when that's not the right issue. So that's how I'm going to tie it in.
I like it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very
So
interesting. Yeah, right. You can see how you can tailor that in with this specifically. Definitely. I
yeah.
love it. What about the subject lines? Yes. I mean, like, what about the major factors that you find would be the best
Yeah.
questions for me to ask? What's the major cojones that we can implement or change or
Yeah.
adjust that's going to make the biggest difference?
So I think that it's really important to remember that there's no one big thing, there's no one big secret that like if
Yeah.
you know this, everything is going to be easy and it's all going to work. And I think my thing has always been like, I'm not going to say that subject lines are completely unimportant because there's some relevance to them, but we are much more concerned with who an email is from. What
Yeah.
you want to do with your email, with your copy, with your business overall is make the subject line irrelevant. And when I say make the subject line irrelevant, I'm not only talking about the subject line. I mean, make the entire sales page irrelevant. Be the person who people are going to open your email and buy your stuff because you're you. Be so valuable and so important to the people who are your core fans that it's like, it's literally, it's, oh, Abby put this out, 100%, I'm in, like be
Mm.
that person for them. And that comes from providing value over time. So it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, building relationships, being in this for the long term, not lying to people, knowing that you're in it for the long game, that you're not somebody who's just trying to make a quick buck off of people, caring about the people you serve, all of those things. Like, I know we want there to be a secret, a formula, a thing. Like, if I just do this, it's all gonna, like, I'm gonna make $1 million. And my husband laughs at me a lot. Like, he says, you could sell a lot more courses if you would just say blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that because I gotta look at, I gotta look in the mirror every day and I have our children and I have you and I have, like, that's not who I wanna be as a human. And I'm not interested in working with clients who wanna be that way. Like, I want to know that at the end of the day, I did some good in the world and I helped people and that's who I want to be.
I
So,
love it. More important than a lot of us realize. And you realize it once you make the money.
yeah,
For me specifically, you really start to have to wonder, wait a second, what's really important to me? Because once you've got the money, I found the lifestyle didn't really change much,
right.
and I was like, man,
Correct.
I grew up believing that if I was a millionaire, everything would be great, no problems. How could you have any pain if you can just
Right.
buy happiness? Turns out, there needed some
You-
some adjustments in that belief system, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No,
Um,
definitely. Look, I mean, I have a kid who, my kid who's got special needs also had cancer in the past, and he's
wow.
better now and whatever.
Hmm.
You go through that and you realize like what matters at the end of the day. Like my children, my husband, our health, I want us to be healthy and happy. That's what I want more than anything. And I couldn't, like, when he was sick, it didn't matter how much money we had. Like, I couldn't buy his health. Yes, money can make things more comfortable and it can make things easier. And I think money is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love money. I think it's amazing. I think that it's power and that it gives you power to make smart decisions and
Yeah.
to help people as much as you want to. And also, like, I'm never going to prioritize money over people. So,
And there's an important lesson there. What's really important as opposed to the materialistic.
yeah.
You
I mean,
realize the
I fly
normal
business
people.
class. I love it. I'm all about nice things. I like nice hotel rooms, right? But I will never ever prioritize money over people. I care much more about people than I do about money. So
So when you're
yeah,
writing your copy, you're really talking about letting your guard down and having boundaries in terms of how far you're willing to go, not crossing ethical lines, but
Yeah.
really staying true to who you are as you
Yes.
write the copy. You know, you talk about not
Absolutely.
lying and even
Hmm.
turning away clients who wouldn't
Yeah.
be
Oh
a
yeah.
good fit because, you know, like your
Yeah.
husband said you could say this and you'd be able to get
Yeah.
that, but you refuse to.
That's not my thing.
How did you start that? Because it's not natural in a lot of people in this world who are just modeling other people, right? And so how did you
Yeah.
start that introspective process to realize and develop that?
I mean, I really think that that's a big part of, like, I want to give credit to my parents. That's how I was reared. Like, my parents also prioritized people over money. And I'll be very honest, I grew up with money. And it made a lot of things easier, right? Um, and still, even with like even having grown up with money, like I also grew up with parents who gave an enormous amount to charity. And that was what they taught us. Like, even when you don't have, so when my husband and I were first married and we were young, and we were very young when we got married, I was 20 and my husband was 23. Um, and and we didn't have a lot of money, and we still, like, we knew that we were obligated to give charity, and to take care of people around us who had less than we did, even when we had very little. And I've always, I mean, my dad, when I was a kid, one of the things that he said to me many, many times in my childhood, and still says to me now in my adulthood, all you have at the end of the day is your integrity. It was just never in my belief system to lie to people. It's just not who I want to be. And it was very easy, like even early on in my freelance writing career, I was offered a contract with, let's say, a large consumer goods company that also at the time was investing heavily in ads that I didn't like. Some of them were cigarette ads, and some of them were ads that discouraged mothers from breastfeeding, let's say. And I was like, I don't want any part of this. I don't want to work for this company. Their values don't align with mine. And I remember at the time, my husband was like, maybe you should just write the thing, because they weren't asking me to write about cigarettes or baby formula. They were asking me to write about a different thing. And I was like, I don't want to be involved with this company. I don't want to. And I didn't. And that's been my whole thing. Like, I've gotten on calls with potential clients, lucrative contracts, and if I can't be all in, it's a no.
And that gives you a certain power, a certain
Yeah.
persuasive prowess because they can
Yeah.
tell that, wait, this person is not needing my business. It's more of
Right.
a mutual understanding if it's good for you and it's good for me instead of just like,
Right.
okay, let me try to sell you all my services. I'll take whoever I can get.
Yeah.
Totally
No.
different energy. Yeah.
And I tell when I teach women how to, get started in freelance writing, that's a big thing that I tell them is, when you have a discovery call, it's not like you are two peers meeting. And if anyone has the power in the relationship, it's you, because you have the skill that they need. So you're not
Mhm.
trying to sell them. They're trying to convince you that they should be so lucky that you should write for them. So,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly. Which is,
yeah.
yeah, you can flip that around too, which is cool.
Yeah.
So what's a question that I should be asking you that I'm not asking? But if I were to ask, would be able to extract the biggest amount of value that you could possibly offer in one answer.
I love this question. Wow, we talked about a lot of really valuable things. Oh, the question that you're not asking that you should be asking. This is very difficult. You've put me on the spot here. I'm usually the person asking the questions. This is very
Oh,
difficult.
I know the feeling, man.
Um,
Me too. And then, but yeah, I don't like being on the other side of it.
right?
I know what you
It's
mean.
weird. It's weird. Okay. Question that you should be asking me is, um, what's what's the most valuable email you can send?
Okay. Okay, first
And
of all, under what context? When?
I would say in a sales sequence.
Okay, okay. So what is it?
Okay. So I would say that it is the post offer email to non-buyers.
Okay.
And really getting like that instant feedback. And again, I think that you should be following up on this with those personal conversations, not with every single non-buyer, obviously, but with a handful of them. But I think that there's a lot to be said for, regardless of how the launch or the sale or the whatever went, if it did wonderfully or if it completely flopped, to always have that like post sequence follow up to the non-buyers to say, like, if you had to say one thing about why you didn't buy, what would it be? And just get that immediate feedback and see what it
Mm.
is.
Mm.
Um, so
Over email, and you expect a reply through email?
yeah, I mean, you can set it up with, click here for to choose an answer, or it can be just hit reply. Yeah, not everybody's going to reply, but you are going to get replies from the most important non-buyers who are the ones who
Mm.
were really close.
Mm.
You're not going to get replies from all of them, but you are going to get, and you don't need replies from all of them. You don't need
Yeah.
tens or hundreds, or certainly not thousands. You need like 5 people who will tell you the truth.
Mm. And then how do you leverage that in the same sequence? You see, you say in the next email, this was the
Yeah.
pattern. Maybe you're thinking something along the same lines, and then reframe it or answer it.
I mean, if I say that a cart is closed on a certain date, again, back to the like, I'm not going to reopen it. So like if I said like this was an opportunity and you chose not, now if it's something that's always available, fine. Then I'm absolutely willing to at that point, I would, if I've gotten a handful of answers, I would step away from email and I would be trying to get on an actual call and talk to people. I would certainly be using that information going forward to try to address. But again, I would want to go deeper and I would want to have conversations. For me, it's not about saving a handful of sales. It's about how is the overall messaging coming across?
Mm.
What,
Mm.
what are people, especially those people who were super close and then ultimately decided not to, what was it? Is there something that I can do that next time around I can get more of those people in?
And
So,
then leverage it for your whole time in that
yeah,
this relationship with you. So
yeah,
it's gold that they're giving you. Like you said, not just for that sale, not just to make
right,
the immediate, even to sell the people that reply. It's really
right,
about getting the information and the truth from them. The question
right.
is, do they know the truth? That's difficult
And
because,
again, like they may,
it's
you
they have to
may
be
not get an
conscious of it.
immediate, right. You may not get that like that deeper level answer right away. But if you're opening up the the chance for conversation. So like, let's say
Yeah.
if I were doing this in my own business, if I had sent out a post offer email saying, hey, I noticed like you had clicked on all the links, you were at the masterclass, whatever, and you ultimately didn't buy WhatsApp. And if I got a few people who replied to me, so I would immediately reply with like a Loom video or something where I would be like, hey, it's me. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to reply to this. And I just want to say,
Mm.
like, to this point, blah, 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 whatever. Like, actually give them some of my time where I'm not trying to make a sale. Like it could be like, I mean, again, so in my freelance writing course business, I work with a lot of moms, and so sometimes it's like, I really was thinking about this, but I don't know, like I'm on bed rest now, and I just whatever. So that's the kind of thing where I'm like, oh, I totally empathize. I completely understand how frustrating it must be for you, and you must be so worried and whatever. And your health is the most important thing. How about this? If it's okay with you, I'm going to follow up with you in 6 months. We'll see where you are. And if you're still interested, I'm going to let you come in at this same, offer, price, whatever. Um, if you're not interested, that's okay too. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like I want to have the conversation. I want to talk to people. Again, it
Yeah.
comes back to caring about people and caring about the people in your audience and wanting long-term relationships with them. I've had people who like they wanted something and it was very clear that they were in for it. And then something happened in their personal lives or in their business life or whatever, and they couldn't take advantage at that time. And because I do care about them and I do have these conversations with people, they would come back then in the next launch and they'd be
Mm.
ready, or they'd come back to me, kind of out of launch phase and say like, any possibility that I can work one-on-one with you or whatever. Like it just, if you think about it as building relationships and getting certainly getting data and getting good information, but using that ultimately to be a better business owner, like to be better for your people, you're going to have a more success in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. It comes off, right? You can tell if somebody
Yeah.
really cares as opposed to
Yeah.
somebody who's just trying to get a dollar and make that sale. And
Right.
then it's off to the
Right.
next one afterwards. You can tell the
Right.
energy is different,
Definitely.
even in copy through an email. It's like
Yeah.
it radiates throughout from the,
100%.
and then you associate that person with caring or trying to
That's what
get
it is.
something, right? And so you're really
Right.
making those associations and
And it comes
sticking with
back to,
them.
like I said, making the subject line irrelevant. If everything that people feel when they see your name in the inbox
Yeah.
is, she
Oh
just
yeah.
wants my money,
Mm,
versus,
mm.
I'm so excited to see her in my inbox, like there's a real difference in that energy
Yeah.
and how they're receiving your email and
And the
everything else that
difference
you're putting
is
out there.
genuinely caring at the end of the
Yeah.
day. It's not a
Yeah.
tactic, it's not a trick.
It's
It's
not a tactic.
right. It's genuinely
It's,
helping people out and sticking with them.
yeah.
They can feel it.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love it. Abby, dude, we went through a lot. I love it. We
We
had a
did.
interesting conversation here and I
We
appreciate
did.
it. Anything else you want to add before we kick this off?
I just really, I loved having the chance to do this. I could geek out on this all day
Me
long. This is
too.
what I
Me too.
love. And this is fantastic.
It
So
was
yeah, thanks for
fantastic.
having me.
I appreciate you. It's my pleasure. And we will talk soon. Okay.
Very good. All righty.
Awesome.
Take
Abby,
care.
thank you. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.